Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful. Topic that were discussed with class 8 on July 20th, Monday, were involuntary versus reflex section. Well, student, we already talked about the reflex section, that these are the actions which are instantaneous, involuntary, and protective in nature and are controlled by the spinal cord, most of them. And we talked about their two types: if they are controlled by the spinal cord, or if they are present in the lower body region, then we call them the spinal reflex because they are controlled by spinal cord. And if they are present in the head region, these reflexes, so they are known as the cranial reflex. But because most of your body most of the reflexes takes place in the lower body regions, that is why we call that most of the reflex action takes place in the spinal cord. So that's the more we have spinal reflex. So now we're going to talk about two new actions that takes place inside our body. One is the voluntary action and the other is the involuntary action. Voluntary are the one that are taking place without our awareness. We don't know that they are taking place in voluntary one, but they are still there. For example, the heartbeat, you don't know about it, that your heart is beating, you're not consciously you're aware of it, you're not this is the one which is happening unconsciously. So these reactions are known as involuntary action, as they are automatic from the day you are born till the day you die. They keep working. The other one is the voluntary action, which is not automatic and you do it yourself. For example, moving your hands, walking, moving, talking, chatting with someone, and writing something. This is all voluntary action in which you are aware that you are doing that. The voluntary action are controlled by the cerebrum. The voluntary actions are controlled by the cerebrum, and involuntary are controlled by the medulla oblongata. This is a very important point, which means all the involuntary action are controlled by medulla, whereas the voluntary are controlled by the cerebrum. So then let's see their pathways. They are passed from the receptor, the cell that receives stimulus, to the spinal cord. The spinal cord is present in your back. Then it goes to the brain, which is where the part of the brain, cerebrum, it's a part of a brain. Then it goes again to bring back the message from the brain to the spinal cord again through the motor neuron. And then it goes to the effector. Effector are the cells that gives the output, or the muscles that gives the output. Let's see this one. This pathway is receptor that receives a stimulus, passes it to the spinal cord. Till now they are same. The spinal cord passes this message to the brain part, medulla oblongata. Now this is something different from the voluntary action. This medulla then gives the reply through spinal cord and then to the effector through motor neuron. So the one that are giving message from the receptor to the brain are the sensory neuron, and one that is bringing back are the motor neuron. So voluntary action are slower as compared to the involuntary action, whereas involuntary action are faster as compared to in case of involuntary action, they are very regular. Heartbeat is regular, 72 times beat per minute. So this is a regular thing and it have to be fast. As compared to voluntary action, this require a lot of thinking, this require consciousness. So we can say this is slower in that sense. So now these are the examples here: speaking, hearing, writing, walking. There are other examples you can add yourself as well. Whereas involuntary action is the heartbeat, peristalsis, and respiration. Well, you know what is heartbeat and respiration, but this peristalsis, let's revise what was the peristalsis. The movement of food in the esophagus. The esophagus subconsciously contract and relax, and you don't even realize how food is passed from the esophagus to the stomach. This is actually a lot of action that is required there. This relaxation and contraction of the muscles present in the esophagus allow the food to go into the stomach. All the muscles, before we move to the next step, let me tell you, we have three different types of muscles. The muscles that are attached to your bones, they are the skeletal muscles, right? The muscles that is present in your heart is a cardiac muscle and you cannot control it. The muscles that are present in your internal organ, i.e. your lungs, your stomach, your intestines, your kidney, your liver, they are another kind of muscles, and we are going to call them simply smooth muscles. So three different types of muscles: the skeletal attached to bones, the cardiac in the heart, and the muscles in the internal organ. I'm just calling them smooth muscles. Let's talk about what's the difference between involuntary and reflex action. Before we move on, just listen to me. this sentence would be very helpful for you. All the reflex action are involuntary, but not all involuntary action are reflex action. That's the line you will remember. Now we have this differences that reflex and involuntary action. The point number one simply says that reflex action needs a stimulus. Something must be there so that a reflex action might occur just to protect you. But in case of involuntary action, no stimulus is required. It just keep going on and on and on. Number 2 point is reflex action are controlled by spinal cord. Of course, we don't have so much time to protect ourselves to rely on brain, that brain will give reply to us and then will react on it. We just rely on the spinal cord if it's in the lower body. Of course, we know it now, but I told you that we are just going to say that to the spinal cord because most of the reflexes are in the spinal cord. The involuntary action are controlled by medulla oblongata. We know that. Reflex action are very quick. Of course, we are protecting ourselves, so we need a quick response. In case of involuntary action, they are slower but faster as compared to voluntary action. You should keep that in mind. The slowest one is the voluntary, then involuntary, then reflex action. So reflex action may involve any muscle. They are involving any muscle. There is no limitation to it. But in case of involuntary action, they are mostly the cardiac muscles or the smooth muscles. We know the examples. Reflex action is blinking of eyes. Something goes into your eye. For example, dust blows into your eye. You're just going to close them. This is a reflex action. You're not even aware of that I'm closing my eye just to protect them from the dust particles. But still, you're closing it. That's a reflex action. But in case of involuntary action, they are the beating of heart and blood circulation. This is involuntary action. So this is the end of this chapter in the nervous system. Until then, Allah Hafiz.